Elon Musk just obliterated Keir Starmer live on television, and the aftermath has shaken the entire British government to its core. What unfolded on that stage wasn't an interview, it was a political massacre. Within minutes, social media exploded, Westminster went into meltdown, and the Prime Minister's reputation began to crumble in real time. What Musk said and how Starmer reacted has every insider, every journalist, and every voter asking the same terrifying question. Is this the end of Starmer's rule? The broadcast started like any other prime-time debate, a polite discussion about technology, safety, and progress. But beneath the lights, something was brewing. Elon Musk didn't come to talk about innovation. He came to expose the rot festering inside British politics. From the very first question, his tone was sharp, deliberate, and cold. When the host asked about online safety laws, Musk didn't hesitate. Britain, he said, has become a nation where free speech is treated like a threat. The crowd went silent, cameras zoomed in. Keir Starmer's smile faded. What happened next was nothing short of explosive. Musk turned directly to the Prime Minister sitting just feet away and delivered a line that will be remembered for decades. You are arresting citizens for words while letting real criminals walk free. That's not democracy, that's tyranny. The room froze. The host tried to pivot, but Musk wasn't finished. He pulled out printed documents, actual court records, and listed case after case. Real British citizens who'd been detained for social media posts. The details were undeniable. The facts were devastating. Starmer tried to dismiss it as misinformation, but Musk cut him off before he could finish. These are your numbers, he said, your laws. And you're destroying the very freedoms Britain was built on. The audience gasped. Some clapped. Even the moderators looked stunned. You could feel the air change, a shift from a calm discussion to a full-blown confrontation. Starmer tried to regain control, but every word he spoke sounded weak compared to Musk's precision. This wasn't a debate, it was a demolition. And Musk wasn't just attacking Starmer's policies. He was exposing the hypocrisy at the core of his leadership. Then came the moment that sent shockwaves through the nation. Musk brought up the grooming gang scandals, one of the darkest stains on modern British history. His tone turned ice cold as he looked Starmer dead in the eye. You were the top prosecutor when this happened, Musk said. Thousands of children were abused and you stayed silent. You protected your image, not the victims. You could hear a pin drop. Starmer's face drained of colour. Cameras caught every flicker of panic in his eyes. The Prime Minister stammered, tried to explain limited resources, complex cases, but Musk didn't let him breathe. Children were drugged, trafficked, set on fire, and you did nothing. The words hit like bullets. Within seconds, the internet erupted. Hashtags exploded across every platform. Hashtag Musk v Starmer. Hashtag UK Meltdown. Hashtag Free Speech Now. The clip spread faster than any political scandal in recent memory. Commentators called it a national humiliation. Opposition parties pounced, calling Starmer's silence proof of guilt. Even members of his own party were seen whispering to journalists that the Prime Minister had lost control. Backstage, chaos unfolded. Advisors scrambled, phones buzzed, crisis teams were activated, but it was too late. The story had already gone global. News outlets in America, Europe and Australia were replaying the footage on loop. Musk had not just won an argument, that he had rewritten the political conversation. For the first time, people were openly questioning whether their government had been built on censorship and cowardice. And the best part, Musk didn't raise his voice once. He didn't need to. His calm, factual precision made Starmer look like a man unravelling live on air. It was the perfect storm. Truth versus power, freedom versus control. And the richest man on earth had just turned a prime minister into a cautionary tale. But this was only the beginning. What happened after the cameras stopped rolling would take this political earthquake to a whole new level. Because once Musk hit post on his platform, the real battle began. By dawn, Britain had become a nation in chaos. The Musk-Starmer clash wasn't just trending. It had consumed the entire media cycle, every screen, every headline, every conversation in the country. What had started as a televised debate turned into a full-blown political crisis that no one could contain. The BC's clip had been shared millions of times within hours, but it was Musk's own post. The full, unedited footage uploaded with the caption, "Democracy needs transparency. Watch and decide for yourself." That detonated like a bomb. 100 million views, tens of thousands of comments. The people weren't just watching, they were awakening. Suddenly, ordinary citizens were quoting court cases, dissecting censorship laws, and demanding accountability from leaders who had never imagined being questioned this hard. The walls of Westminster began to shake. Journalists camped outside Downing Street. Reporters shouted questions that the Prime Minister refused to answer. Inside number 10, emergency meetings were held around the clock. Ministers argued, aides panicked, and Starmer's closest allies began turning on each other. Some demanded an aggressive counterattack to accuse Musk of foreign interference, to label him an extremist billionaire bent on destabilising democracy. Others begged the Prime Minister to say nothing, terrified that any response would feed Musk's fire. Every attempt at damage control backfired. Every leaked memo, every offhand comment became another headline, and the public wasn't buying excuses anymore. By midday, the newspapers hit the stands with one brutal message: Musk destroys Starmer. Even the traditionally loyal outlets couldn't spin it. Editorials described the confrontation as a masterclass in truth-telling and the most devastating takedown in live TV history. Polling agencies reported a sudden drop in Labour support within just 12 hours. Numbers that had taken years to build were collapsing overnight. Opposition leaders smelled blood. Nigel Farage appeared on live television smirking as he said, "Elon Musk just said what millions of us have been shouting for years, and the establishment can't stand it." His words as echoed across social media, gaining momentum with every share. Reform UK's following skyrocketed. People were calling it a political realignment, a reshaping of the British landscape driven not by politicians, but by a single viral moment of truth. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister looked broken. Cameras caught him entering Parliament the next morning, pale, expressionless, surrounded by aides who wouldn't meet his eyes. His speeches, once sharp, confident, now sounded defensive, mechanical, empty. When journalists shouted questions about the viral clip, he ignored them, pretending not to hear. But silence only made him look weaker. Insiders began leaking stories to the press, describing shouting matches in Downing Street, sleepless nights and panic about the next election. One unnamed MP called it a leadership collapse in slow motion. Another warned, if this doesn't stop, he's finished. The cracks were spreading fast, and Musk, he was just getting started. While the government scrambled to contain the fallout, he doubled down. He began posting detailed threads with evidence, court records, police reports, all the information that mainstream media had buried for years. His followers devoured every word. For them, he wasn't just a billionaire anymore. He was a whistleblower, a truth teller, a symbol of resistance against a corrupt system. Every post drew millions of reactions. Every tweet another dagger into the government's narrative. And when rumours surfaced that the UK was considering fines or legal restrictions against Musk's platform, it was game over. Critics instantly accused the government of proving Musk's point, that they feared free speech more than truth. By the evening, the situation had spiralled completely out of control. Protesters flooded the streets outside Parliament holding signs that read, "Free speech now" and "Resign Starmer." The crowds grew by the hour. Young, old, left, right, all united under one banner: anger. Police presence was heavy, but this time they hesitated. No one wanted to be filmed arresting protesters after Musk's accusations had gone viral. The government's grip on the narrative was slipping, and everyone could see it. The internet had become the new parliament, and Elon Musk was running the session. Inside the halls of power, desperation turned into fear. Leaked messages from Labour insiders revealed talk of a temporary leadership transition, a political code for replacing Starmer if the outrage didn't die down. Some even started floating names for his successor. The opposition was already drafting motions of no confidence, and the press was preparing for the possibility of an early election. Britain hadn't seen a meltdown like this in decades. The explosion didn't stop at Britain's borders. It went global. Within 24 hours, the Musk-Starmer confrontation had transformed from a national scandal into an international earthquake, shaking the political world to its foundations. American networks ran the clip on repeat, calling it the most shocking political moment of the decade. Commentators across Europe debated whether this was a warning sign, a billionaire exposing what governments everywhere feared, that censorship and control were no longer sustainable in the digital age. In France, journalists compared Starmer's collapse to the early signs of a government losing legitimacy. In Germany, lawmakers worried openly that their own citizens might start demanding the same level of accountability Musk had just forced on Britain. It wasn't just a British story anymore, it was a global story about power, truth, and the unstoppable rise of the individual voice over the establishment. In the US, the reaction was electric. Major talk shows and news panels turned the event into headline debates. Some praised Musk as a hero of free speech, others called him a dangerous provocateur. But either way, everyone was talking about him, and that was exactly what he wanted. When Donald Trump reposted the clip on his own platform with the caption, "Elon is doing more for freedom in Britain than Starmer ever did," it ignited a storm of reactions. Political analysts called it an international alignment of populism and truth-telling. In the span of a day, Musk had become a global symbol, not just of wealth or innovation, but of defiance. Governments trembled because they understood what had changed. The narrative no longer belonged to them. It belonged to whoever could reach the people directly, and Musk had the loudest megaphone in the world. Back in Britain, Westminster was imploding. International coverage only deepened the humiliation. Every new headline, every foreign commentary became another wound. Ministers were furious that the Prime Minister's image was now being dissected by American late-night hosts and European correspondents. Inside Downing Street, a wave of panic swept through the ranks. Leaked reports described unprecedented instability and communication collapse. Advisors warned that the crisis was now beyond repair, that Starmer's credibility had evaporated not just at home but abroad. Diplomats were struggling to reassure foreign allies that the government was still stable, but even they admitted privately that Britain had become a global spectacle. The phrase Musk versus Starmer had taken on a life of its own, a symbol of government weakness in the face of raw truth. Then Musk escalated again. In a single post that broke every record for engagement, he wrote, "When governments jail citizens for words and protect predators, they forfeit their moral authority." That line detonated across continents. Hashtags multiplied, protests spread. And suddenly, what had begun as a British scandal evolved into a worldwide conversation about speech, censorship, and accountability. University students in Canada, activists in Poland, and journalists in India began quoting Musk's words as a rallying cry. Even tech CEOs and public figures started echoing his sentiment, saying governments needed to stop fearing open dialogue. The ripple effect was unstoppable. Musk had turned one televised confrontation into a global movement. Meanwhile, the British establishment was breaking apart under pressure. Civil servants reportedly discussed the legality of restricting Musk's platform in the UK, a move that instantly backfired. Screenshots of internal government discussions leaked online within hours, and the public exploded with outrage. "You're proving his point," wrote one viral post with millions of likes. Even media outlets that had once defended the government began to turn. Headlines read, "Censorship in real time," and "Musk's critics just handed him victory." Every attempt to silence him only made him stronger. Every threat of regulation made him look like the champion of truth standing up to tyranny. International markets reacted next. The pound dipped amid the uncertainty. Investors began speculating about early elections. And political analysts warned that Britain's image as a bastion of democracy was being shredded in real time. Other leaders began distancing themselves from Starmer's government. European ministers declined public appearances with him, afraid of being caught in the storm. Inside Parliament, whispers turned into open revolt. Backbench MPs began privately calling for a leadership challenge, while others leaked to reporters that Starmer's inner circle was losing its grip on reality. The government was at war with itself, and every leak, every rumour became another headline around the world. And through it all, Elon Musk remained untouchable. He didn't hold press conferences or give long statements. He didn't need to. By the seventh day, Britain was unrecognisable. The air outside Parliament was thick with chants, camera flashes and anger that had been building for years. Protesters lined the streets from Westminster Bridge to Downing Street, waving flags, holding posters of Musk's quotes and chanting, "Free speech isn't a crime." What began as online outrage had turned into a physical uprising, a national reckoning. The government's carefully curated image of order was disintegrating in front of the world. Keir Starmer's face, once the symbol of authority and composure, now appeared exhausted, haunted and hollow. Every time he tried to speak, his words sounded like echoes in a collapsing chamber. He wasn't leading anymore, he was surviving. And everyone could see it. Ministers stopped defending him on air. Advisors resigned quietly in the night. Even party loyalists began deleting their public endorsements, pretending they had seen this fall coming all along. The illusion of control had evaporated. Musk's latest move poured fuel on the inferno. In a single tweet, short, precise, devastating, he wrote, "When leaders fear their people, freedom begins." That line alone sent shockwaves through the establishment. It was shared by journalists, students, veterans, and even some sitting members of Parliament. The political machine that once controlled the narrative was now powerless against the sentence. Within hours, tens of thousands of citizens marched toward Parliament, demanding Starmer's resignation. Police surrounded the area, but even they hesitated to act. Cameras were everywhere, live streams running non-stop. Every officer knowing that one wrong move would become the next viral scandal. For the first time, power wasn't on the side of those in uniform. It belonged to the lenses pointed at them. The fear had shifted. The government no longer feared the government feared its people. Inside Number 10, chaos had become routine. Reports described shouting matches between senior staff, some begging Starmer to resign for the sake of stability, others insisting he could still recover if he attacked Musk publicly. But they all knew the truth. Every attack only made Musk stronger. Every attempt to silence him looked like proof of guilt. The cycle was endless and fatal. Starmer's legal team drafted warnings against Musk's platform, but before they could act, those very drafts leaked to the press. Headlines screamed, "Downing Street considers banning Musk's platform." The backlash was instant and ferocious. Even government-friendly broadcasters refused to defend it. The British public, weary of lies and manipulation, saw it for what it was. Desperation. Commentators declared it the moment democracy turned on its head. And Musk, watching the chaos unfold from across the Atlantic, responded with a single word: predictable. By now, the cracks within the Labour Party had become fractures. Senior MPs began issuing veiled statements about fresh leadership and renewed trust. A few broke ranks completely, calling for Starmer to step down immediately. Anonymous sources told journalists that letters of no confidence were piling up faster than anyone expected. Rumours of a snap election flooded social media, fueling speculation and panic. Markets wobbled again, investors pulled back, and Britain's image abroad sank even lower. International outlets framed it as the day Westminster lost its crown. Musk, meanwhile, had become the face of defiance worldwide, a man who didn't need office or title to command nations. He had proven something terrifying to those in power. Truth could no longer be contained within borders. As the protests grew, something extraordinary happened. Police officers began removing their helmets and joining the crowds. Videos surfaced of uniformed officers shaking hands with demonstrators, of chants turning into cheers as authority figures stood beside the people they were supposed to suppress. The symbolism was undeniable. The establishment had fractured from within. Parliament was no longer a fortress of control. It was a monument to failure. Starmer's final public address was meant to project calm, but it only confirmed his defeat. His voice trembled, his words stumbled, and his promises sounded hollow against the noise of tens of thousands chanting outside his window. Every second of that speech was live-streamed to millions around the world. By the time it ended, the hashtags Starmer Resign and Britain Awakes had flooded every major platform. The next morning, the inevitable happened. Multiple outlets reported that senior officials had delivered an ultimatum: step down or face a formal rebellion. Within hours, Starmer's resignation letter was leaked. It wasn't announced with dignity or ceremony. It was exposed online before his press team could prepare a statement. Musk's post about it. Just 3 words: accountability.